Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 10 of Seeking Focus. And boom.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
Hey Marty, welcome back. Another week, another dollar.
Another COVID day.
Another one, yeah. How was your week?
It was bloody quiet, man. I think we spoke to a few times, but we don't actually record these conversations live or anything like that. So we kind of pre-record them a week or two in advance. And obviously COVID hit Melbourne again, and it's just stuffed everything up. I mean, the wedding industry is just upside down. You know, my work is just upside down. And to be honest, if I didn't have a part-time job, I just wouldn't be able to bloody put, butter on the table, bread on the table. You know what I mean? It's just shocking. But saying that though, look, hopefully we're going to come out of it. Everyone's going to get vaxxed, and then we can travel overseas and everything else. So it's a quiet one. Nothing's happening, but it is what it is, It's disappointing. How was yours? Talk to me.
No photography, no videography. Doing a lot of editing for people, predominantly video editing for people from interstate. So we're getting a lot of jobs from Queensland, and also doing a number of podcasts. Actually, believe it or not, I'm the audio engineer for a number of podcasts. So I've been working on those behind the scenes.
So you're telling me you're going behind the Seeking Focus back?
Yeah, I'm a trader, aren't I?
That's fine, mate. Whatever makes the world go around, I guess. That's fine, mate. That's fine.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what we've been up to. And in today's episode, we're going to take it a little bit off the normal route that we go. We're not talking about products today. We're talking more about the service industry. And today we're going to be looking at photography and videography within the wedding industry. So something a little bit different. And we have a special guest with us in the studio. Well, it's not actually in the studio. We're recording this at 3 different locations, live via a Zoom broadcast. And with us we have the wonderful Marcel Van der Horst. I'm trying to pronounce that. I'm really bad at pronunciation, so my apologies. Marcel is actually a well-known photographer. He does some amazing work, and that was actually what brought him to my attention. I saw some of his work and I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And ironically, I was actually part of a group that he runs on Facebook as well called the Victorian Wedding Photographers and Videographers and Second Shooters. So welcome, Marcel.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
How's your week?
Yes, great. Not a lot going on right now, simply because we can't shoot weddings just yet. But the inbox has been quite busy with all the rebookings and shufflings and confirmations that are going on for the upcoming weddings in November and December.
I got a feeling you're going to get crazy busy in that time, and I don't think you're going to have time to even think, sleep, or anything else. It's just going to be so busy.
What happened in early this year when weddings came back, I was probably the busiest I've ever been in my life between January and May. So I think we're going to see a repeat of that same time next year. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Fabulous.
Good luck sleeping.
You'll be a busy boy. And just for clarity's sake, I mean, you are predominantly a wedding photographer, but you also do other types of photography. So what else do you do?
Yeah, so I moonlight as a real estate photographer that has sort of kept the lights on throughout most of the pandemic. So that's good having that skill available in the background. And I also do commercial photography as well, mainly in the hospitality space, restaurants, food production, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, that's hugely different from wedding photography. So nice mix there.
So wedding is your bread and butter, is it?
Yeah, it's a large part of the total income. Obviously, that has shifted in the last sort of year or so, but it's I've been doing it the longest, probably about 13, 14 years now.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay.
Probably I lost count at about 300 weddings, but I'd estimate about 360-ish, 370, thereabouts under the belt now.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, and
The body's getting tired.
and you've got a beautiful style to your photos. They're very lush. That's probably the best way of describing the images. I mean, there's a lot of people who do photography for weddings out there. Myself, I actually do wedding photography too. I've done it for a number of years. Marty as well. Have you actually done? You haven't done any wedding photography?
Look, yeah, I've done one or two, but to be honest with you, it wasn't my cup of tea. And when I sort of jumped in there and tried to do it, I found that the videography component is much better suited to my needs and my liking. So I've done a lot more videos, but not much with the photography component. And I found that being a photographer, you got to drive everything. You got to keep the time. You got to make sure that you are on top of every single component of that wedding, because bride and groom, they're just having a good time and they just don't care about what's happening or when's it happening, So yeah, I've done one or two, but it's not my forte. And I've actually got engaged for a few weddings in like a couple of, actually during sort of January, February, March. And I just declined and I was just like, nah, I don't want to do it. Just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, it is. It's not an easy industry to work in. I've actually done a number of wedding videos as well, so I've done a crossover between photography and video. Marcel, do you actually do any video yourself?
No, I haven't dabbled in video in terms of weddings. I have done it plenty of times for the real estate and commercial industry, but I find with weddings, I think there is already a really good range of videographer specialists out there that, I'd rather hand the work off to. And I do commend their job because it is a very difficult job. There's, a lot of equipment to carry, and the editing post-wedding as well is hugely important.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's all the tripods, the gimbals, the cranes, you name it. It's all there. So, your website, I've noticed you've actually got a whole team. So it's not just yourself doing wedding stuff. You've got a whole team basically that backs you up. And what does each member actually do?
Yeah, so I have two assistants. I call them full-time assistants, even though they don't work every day. They only work with me generally on the wedding day itself. But they're two young ladies that I've had for many years actually. And they come along on weddings and help carry bags. They also help keep time and also, keep on top of the run sheet so I know what's going on. And the main purpose of that is so I can focus on the actual task at hand, which is taking the pictures. And they really help my backup in that sense. And they also offer a little bit of help to maybe the wedding party, for example. If someone, needs a drink at a certain point of the day, they can duck off to grab that. Or if someone needs to hold something, they're available for that sort of thing. And I just rotate between the two depending on their availability. And also, they also have another role beyond that. Kim does my marketing. So she does Instagram posts for me and also LinkedIn. And Nissa also does the occasional editing work as well when I get too busy.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like a well-oiled machine. I try and do most of that stuff myself, and I can tell you now it's not easy. In fact, that's probably one of the reasons I actually don't do too many weddings myself, because I do work solo unless I'm working with Marty on a job. But for the most part, I do work alone, and trying to do all those things by yourself is a living nightmare. Especially the drink bit. I actually have done that a number of times. So you see the bride or the groom really stressing out, and you go, "You need a drink. You need to calm down so I can actually get my photos or my video done properly." So I completely can relate to that.
Yeah, they're a really good support in that way.
Can I ask a question? So
Sure.
You've been doing this for, you said 13 years, yeah? Tell me more about how you started it off, just from the beginning, so people can understand and people can obviously relate to, hopefully.
Sure. It was probably a classic. Fell in love with photography. I had been into it, through the late 80s and early 90s with film. Just toyed around with Dad's camera sort of thing. It became a bit more sort of serious when I bought my first digital camera and started taking pictures of landscapes and cityscapes and that sort of thing. And I actually ended up selling some prints at a gallery, and that sort of jogged my inspiration, and thought you can actually make money off photography. So just started exploring it a bit more. And then how I fell into weddings was I became that annoying person with a camera at a wedding as a guest, tagged along, shot over the photographer's shoulder. He was actually nice enough to sort of, talk me through the industry and what he does and some gear and stuff. And that sort of piqued my interest in that. And those photos I took at a wedding, someone I was showing them to said, "I'm actually getting married soon. Would you shoot my wedding?" And that's basically where it started. And I actually charged them $1,500 for the job, and which I thought was quite impressive back then. Just turned up to the wedding, had a price list, and even made a proof book out of their photos, and totally winged it. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no formal training whatsoever. I just knew how to use a camera.
It's the passion. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just pretty much grew from there. I ended up second shooting a wedding for a friend's sister that was getting married, and then I started building a network of different photographers that needed a second photographer, and so on and so on. And it didn't become serious until I invested in a sort of like a mentorship program or a 5-day sort of intensive workshop, and which was a big outlay, but it taught me a lot about the industry. And and I decided from there on I was going to pursue it more actively, and it became full-time after about 7 or 8 years, and working alongside a busy day job, and it grew from there.
I totally agree.
So is photography now your bread and butter? Is it your full-time work, or are you still also working elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely, full-time. Yep.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right, now, I mentioned it earlier. Your photography, the way I described it was by using the word lush. It's a very rich sort of texture. It's like a lot of people, when they take photos, it's dry, the colors aren't there. It's almost shot like on a really bad quality camera. Yours is always rich. It's full, the colors are just amazing. So how did you pick up that style, and, how did you develop it? I mean, it's just amazing.
In terms of how it looks and how I edit, it probably starts with, the rage of all those presets you can buy. But I find a lot of them were just way too muted and way too scaled back in terms of colors, especially in the greens. And I found myself working at a lot of venues that were primarily green, wineries and venues with, green hedges and so on. So I felt I needed to bring that back. And a lot of photographers were leaning towards the sort of muted tones. I was sort of pushing the more saturated look and more true to life. So that way I feel they become a bit more timeless. And two, maybe in 20 to 30 years' time, I hope that they don't look dated, so that's my sort of approach when it comes to editing. I have been pushing the envelope a little bit lately in terms of my editing style. I've been sort of introducing more color grading and tonal sort of colorization as well, just to sort of play around with the sort of look and try to elevate it a little bit even further.
Yeah, look, I don't think you're going to have any problems with the colours going out of style at all. I mean, it's not like you're going off and doing orange and teal, or that trend that happened for a while that everyone who had a Sony was doing. Sorry, take a dig there at Marty. Sorry, Marty. They're just fantastic colours, and I think they're more traditional in the sense that they're timeless. They're never going to fade. So that's one of the reasons I actually really liked your work. Now, I'm going to move on to a question that I get asked a lot, and it was probably the same question I actually asked of my wedding photographer at the time when I was getting married, which was before I was doing wedding photography. The big question that most clients have asked is, why does it cost so much? So, Marcel, tell us, why does it cost so much to have a wedding photographer come to your wedding?
Yeah, so what a lot of clients probably don't realize is the actual time that goes into, you see us for 8 hours of the day, but there's probably 40 to 50 hours of actual work that goes into a wedding, starting from the initial inquiry, then the reply, all the admin that's associated with, booking in, booking your assistants, or I team up with a videographer as well, organising them. Also do pre-wedding meetings as well. Sometimes they're on site when allowed, if not via Zoom, which I've been doing pretty much for the last 2 years. And then you've got the hours of work of preparing your camera kit beforehand. So, I'm making sure that, all the batteries are charged. I've got like 5 or 6 flashes that I take with me, 2 batteries. I've got some constant lights as well for just in case, because really photography is more about just in case more than anything else. And, making sure that, everything's in the kit, printing out the run sheet, all those little things sort of add up. And then you're often, starting work before you actually take pictures by, going and, introducing yourself to the venue manager and going to have a bit of a walk around just to see the lay of the land. And then you actually execute the work on the day. And then when you get home from that, there's the dumping of the cards, which I like to sort of keep an eye on to make sure that they're all getting in there. And, if you've got four or 5 cards to go through, you have to manually change them over. So that takes hours. So you're often finding yourself in front of the computer up until 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes to download all those files. Then the next day you do a blog post with all the sneak peeks. So you quickly edit 10 to 15 photos, blog them, and then notify the couple that it's live, do your social media posts, and then then comes the editing. So
it's just crazy
process,
time. The crazy
editing,
time.
then the delivery, all that kind of thing. So there isn't really a measure for pricing out there. Everyone's pricing is decided differently, and that comes down to their financial needs and also what they want to get paid per hour, sort of thing, and maybe the value they offer in terms of the inclusions, but also experience level has a big bearing on the cost as well.
Definitely, I agree.
But my cousin's friend will do it for $100. Can you do better?
Yeah.
So I've heard that before, and I just look at the person. I'm like, maybe you should be going with them. That sounds like a great deal.
So, been there, done that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare out there, a minefield. All right, so when we were discussing the show earlier on, you mentioned setting expectations. Now, that's with wedding parties, brides, grooms, suppliers. All of them have unique requests and expectations. What do you find is the most common expectation that these people have? And what is the most common one that you'll be asked as a photographer?
There's a whole range of sort of things that people will ask. One thing that a lot of people ask me a lot about is how long you'll be there for, but they generally would pick a 6 or 8 hour package. So, but they also need to have some help with planning out their day as well. There's sort of a bit of an expectation that the photographer or videographer might be looked towards in terms of helping map out the timeline of the day. So that way they can take the best advantage of your services at the time. So there's no lull periods throughout the coverage. And then also the delivery time of the finished product as well. If you map out all these little things for them before the transaction even happens, you'll find that your client experience is going to be a bit better in the long run.
Do you as a photographer have any requests of the bride and groom when you're actually doing a shoot or planning a shoot?
Probably to have fun is probably the most important factor, because that will probably reflect in the photos at the end of the day. That's probably the first thing. And also be relaxed as well. And I'll just reassure them that I'm here throughout the entire process, even before the wedding, during the actual day itself, and then walk them through the processes after the actual wedding. There's that.
I it's just while you're thinking about it, you just dropped my memory. I shot a wedding once, and that's probably one of the reasons why I stopped doing it, because the bride and groom was so grumpy. They were just, I couldn't even, like, literally, I just could not get a smile out of them. And then I just tried to joke this, that, and they were just like giving me nothing at all. And I was just like, this is crap. This is bullshit. I can't work like that. These guys cannot have fun, and I have to do a lot more work. And it was just like, totally agree that, have fun is the main thing, you know what I mean? And during being a wedding photographer, you got to be funny. You got to be, enjoying the time. For me, it's like the worst part to do to do a shoot and just be grumpy for the whole 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever, how long you shoot for. But yeah, totally agree. Couldn't get any, you got to have fun. You got to, get out there, have a drink, enjoy the day. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely agree.
Definitely agree with you there, Marty. I actually recently did a couple of shoots, a wedding shoot, photography and video, and I brought a team out with me. And we got there, we set up, we were all excited. The big, ginormous Hummer with 4,000 people rocks up, the doors open up, they all crowd out, and they all line up in front of the Hummer, and there was not a single smile. And we're just sitting there looking at them like, what's going on? What happened? Why is no one smiling? And it was, it's freaky. It was freaky. We were just sitting there dumbfounded by it. Like,
it's the best. Look, when I got married, 16, 17 years ago now, whatever else, it was the best day of my life. You know what I mean? And the photographer that I had, I'm still friends with him, believe it or not. You know what I mean? I'm still friends with the videographer that that shot with me. You know what I mean? Because they were such a cool guys. They were so, energetic, and they were just like full of life. And that's potentially one of the reasons why I picked this up as well, because I loved how they dealt with things. And, and Marcel, you probably feel the same way. You know what I mean? You have a couple that, they're just engaging, they love life, they're having a best day of their lives. And, and you're enjoying it with them. You know what I mean? You're part of that, as well. So yeah, it's just like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like your images basically transport that, you know what I mean? Show that they're having a great time with you?
Oh, absolutely. You have to be very personable with all your couples. And, there have been occasions where I've had, a lot of weddings in a month, and I'm just getting tired. And sometimes you get the odd sort of bad one, and you walk away from it going, I didn't do my best there, or the couple were, not that great in terms of their excitement level and all that kind of thing. But there are plenty of occasions where you get a wedding that absolutely reminds you why you did do this in the first place. And you walk away with, probably your best ever images, and, the best feeling as well, because you feel that you've done the best job possible for that couple.
But with my case, with the incident that happened to me, we're standing there waiting for people to smile. No one's smiling. We couldn't understand what was going on. It was actually a cultural thing, believe it or not. It was their culture not to smile at weddings. I never experienced that. So I was just sitting there.
What culture is that?
Afghani. Now, not all Afghani, because I've actually shot other Afghani weddings where everyone was really happy. So that was the reason I sort of like, everyone went in, we filmed everything and we went inside, and I went off and asked the people, I said, why is no one smiling? And they said, that's just the way this culture is. And I was confused by it, because I've done Afghani weddings before, and that wasn't the case. And I said, but and they said, no, this particular type of sect is that way. And I was like, oh, okay. So the whole night, the bridal party just did not smile. It was, even though I knew that this was the case and what was happening, it actually just made me feel really bad filming it. I was just like, I'm not doing a great job here because I'm not getting photos or video of these people smiling, and it really takes it out of you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was just wondering, Marcel, do you have like a standout date that's that you find, you obviously had a stand above the rest? Can you give us an example of anything like that? I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but maybe, if you have something that's, you don't have anything, that's fine. We can continue on.
Yeah, probably even just the last few weddings that I've had this year. Since weddings have come back in sort of January, and almost every single one since then, just I guess the relief that those couples had that they could actually get married, and they absolutely enjoy themselves to another level because, who knows what's going to happen in this climate at the moment. So
Yeah, that's right.
they're basically partying like it's 1999 again. So it's very exciting for a lot of people to actually, to get their weddings done. So because I've got some couples that have postponed 5 times. So they're going to get to a point where they're just over it.
Yeah, stuff it.
Yeah. No, I've actually had a couple of those as well. So, whilst we're talking about these great moments, what's the worst experience you've ever had as a wedding photographer?
It's probably really hard to say what is the worst, but how about the most memorable in terms of
that works,
a strange event? This happened really early on in my career, and it was a small backyard wedding in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and it was only quite a small coverage. I was at a point in my career that I still didn't know a lot about weddings and what to expect at them, but this was a pretty simple wedding, and I was taking photos of the bride getting ready and like normal, and it was just about go time for the ceremony, which was set up in a marquee in this big backyard. And I noticed this figure sort of shadowing in the behind me. I didn't pay too much attention because I was sort of focused on the job at hand, but I felt like they were sort of hovering over me and, sometimes taking pictures over my shoulder and all that kind of thing. Didn't think much of it. But anyway, I headed down to the backyard to get ready for the ceremony, and I had my 70 to 200 lens at the ready, waiting for all the bridal party to come out. And everyone started waltzing out to the music, and then the bride arrived, and she was with her father, of course. Now, no one advised me that the father was going to be dressed as a woman. So 10, 12 years ago, that's probably a little bit different to what you might expect these days. But yeah, it was quite alarming for a lot of people in the crowd, including myself. I didn't know that was happening. So, but anyway, I had a job to do and take those pictures. So I heard a few gasps in the crowd. I had a feeling that the father was coming out at that event. And yeah, he came down to the front, and the celebrant didn't know either. And he goes, who here gives away whatever her name was? Let's call her Beck for the sake of the story. Who here gives away Beck for marriage today? And he says in his deep, manly voice, I do. And the celebrant replies back, thank you, ma'am. I mean, sir. I mean, ma'am. And he was really confused what to say. And then, throughout the rest of the day, this man was sort of, shadowing me and taking photos over my shoulder and even taking pictures of me at some stage throughout the day as well. So, that was my most sort of memorable instance at a wedding. Yeah.
But who was this person standing behind you? Was it a different person, obviously, or?
No, it was the father of the bride. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I thought it was 2 separate people there. So my apologies. I'm thinking like there's some stranger standing over your shoulder, breathing down your back. It's like a hitman or something. On that note of having someone sitting over your shoulder, have you ever been at a shoot and while you're taking your photos, you turn around and there's like someone who's tailing you and taking the same photos as you? That's obviously happened to you because I think it's happened to everyone. Obviously, it has, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
happens to everyone, I think.
It does. Yeah. What was your reaction? Because I've heard some stories where people just really get pissed off and other people don't care. What was your reaction?
Generally, I'm a pretty sort of calm person because my persona on the day sort of reflects on the level of relaxation of the couple as well. So I'm generally not reactive to a lot of situations like that. There have been occasions where I have literally have someone almost stand on my toes or my heels to take pictures as well. And that's generally during the family photos. Usually with the photos that we do off-site somewhere, like in the vineyards or whatever, there's generally, no one that goes as far as following me that far. But yeah, during the family photos, it's quite often you'll get, someone hovering over your shoulder, or sometimes even at a ceremony. There has been many occasions where, let's call him Uncle Bob would, go right down to the end of the aisle, right in front of the couple, with his camera set up that's more expensive than mine, and be taking, pictures right in front of everyone standing up. And so I try to be a little bit more inconspicuous. And yeah, having, someone do that can really get in the way and actually ruin it for the couple too.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest things that I've come across is, you're trying to get the photo of the couple coming down the aisle, and suddenly all these hands come out with iPhones, and everyone's taking photos with iPhones, and they're standing in front of you, and you're like, what the hell's going on? This is ridiculous. So that's happened to me a number of times as well. And it's just bizarre. But yeah.
Well, that's what happens at the moment. We live in a digital age, and everyone's got the iPhone and everything else. So I've actually done in the past taken a photo of the actual iPhone or the phone, them taking the actual, so that being sharply in focus, and then the bride and groom being out of focus, you know what I mean? So I have actually taken a couple of images there, and I think, the bride and groom sort of enjoyed that as well from that perspective, because they are seeing other people taking it, and then, we involving everyone in the same, thing.
It's a little bit of fun sort of thing. So yeah, I can appreciate that. But one of my biggest pet peeves is when people come up to you and go, "Can you use my phone to take a photo?" Like, take a photo of us using our phone. I'm like, and to be honest with you, in the start I used to do it, and at one stage I think the couple got angry at me because they're like, "We're paying you to take photos of us, not to use someone else's phone." And fair call. And I mean, that was, I was trying to be nice, but as it turned out, it was actually quite a negative experience. So now basically every time someone says to me, "Can you take a photo?" I say, "No, I'm sorry, I'm being paid to do a job, and that's what I'm here to do." And the looks I get, it's just like, if looks could kill, I would be dead at every wedding. So terrible.
You got to be firm. But
yeah. That's why you work out, isn't it, Marcel? You work out quite a bit. You're quite buff. I mean, you do that just so you can scare people away, isn't it, right?
Yeah, no one has messed with me at a wedding yet, so that's good. But it's mainly to carry all the gear more than anything else. But yeah, further to that conversation about phones and whatnot, sometimes I've flipped the camera around so it's facing myself and just do a cheeky selfie of myself. So when they get the camera back, one, that creates a bit of an icebreaker, and then I can go, how about let's do it with this camera sort of thing. And it I just gives it a nicer sort of picture in the end. It's a more memorable experience, I guess, for those guests. But I hate it when you're doing a church wedding and you've got your long lens trained down the aisle, you've got your tracking focus set, and then all of a sudden a 10-inch iPad with a flippy cover gets shoved into the center of the aisle, and that throws everything out.
Now, I've actually had people stand in front of the video camera while I'm recording to get a better view, and you're just like, seriously? You're standing in front... I'm being paid to do this job at a professional level, and you want to stand there with your iPad in front of, so yeah, it's one of those weird things. All right, so generally speaking, personally, I've had requests for weddings that have, gone from half an hour through to 12 hours. I think I actually had one person ask me to do a 15 hour shoot, which is just ridiculous. I don't think any human being can possibly work for that long. But what's the shortest period that, you'll take on, and what's the longest period you've ever done?
I do have, and this is not published on my website, but I do like a 2-hour, 2 to 3 hours sort of deal, because of the event of elopements are starting to have a bit of a rise now, and I also have had a few, couples that might have gotten married overseas, but not legally married in Australia, so they would get a registry wedding done. So that way they might only need like a 30-40 minute coverage of the ceremony itself, a couple of family photos, and then we would do like a shoot session around the city or something like that for about an hour or so. And yeah, that's been, getting more and more popular these days.
Yeah.
And as far as longest wedding I've done is 19 hours.
What?
And then, and that was for an Albanian wedding.
Who was it? Sorry? Say it again.
It was an Albanian wedding. It was at a big
Okay.
reception centre, and they wanted photos post-reception. So I did write to stumps at the reception, and then we went on to Crown to do some additional photos at the casino because I had special access to certain parts of it. Come away with some really cool photos and different stuff than I normally would. And but yeah, that was tiring. I literally felt that for 2 days afterwards.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's superhuman, I reckon.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
So did you do that shoot by yourself, or did you have a second shooter with you, or was it just purely you?
I had a second shooter during the groom coverage because they were at the same time as the bride, because there's a lot of traditions when it comes to an Albanian wedding. So, and they often sometimes occur at the same time. So I needed 2 photographers at the same time. But pretty much the rest of the day I did by myself.
Wow.
Well, yeah. No, and I was actually going to ask you, like, do you often get people asking you to just, as a single shooter, not with someone else, but just yourself, to do, a shoot where you've got to do both, bride and groom in separate locations? They don't think about the logistics behind it. I've been asked, can you show up an hour before the wedding and do the bride and then do the groom? And you're like, how the hell am I going to get from the bride to the groom and do photos? And they live like 25 minutes apart from each other, and then make it to the church, set up equipment and everything. And that's an unrealistic expectation. But, in those cases, obviously you need a second shooter, but you'd be surprised at how many people just don't click that, you can't do them both at the same time with a single person.
The longest I've probably done was about 10 hours. And, like people don't realize that, when being a wedding photographer or videographer, you work mentally and physically, you know what I mean? So to me, like when I got home after the 10-hour shift, and I don't know how you felt about after 19 hours, but when I got home, I just literally dropped dead on my bed and slept for like 12 hours straight, you know what I mean? Because I just found, lagging all the equipment, thinking how to take that image, do whatever. Like people think of a wedding photographer or whatever else. Oh, it's just it's fun for you. It's cool, because you like taking photos and whatever else. But what don't realize is how much planning, like you said, in the past it goes in, how much effort, how much logistics, how much it's just physically and mentally draining. It's just phenomenally how much and people ask, why do you charge $3,000 or $4,000 for a wedding? It's like, mate, you've got no idea what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And I get passionate about this sort of stuff because people think we do this for fun and for love of photography and whatever else, And to me, it's like, yeah, I do it for fun because I enjoy it. But you know what? It's damn bloody hard work, So I don't know. That to me, that's just that's 19 hours. That's hats off to you. That's unbelievable.
And to add to that, the drive was an hour's drive home. So
Killer.
That was fun.
You must have fell asleep on the wheel or something, because I just no way you can do that for 19 hours. No bloody way. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Well
I've done
done.
a few out in the country where I've had to drive home for 4 hours on the way home after a big day. Yeah.
Wow, killer. I would just ask them for extra money, for extra $500 for a night, sleep overnight or something. And yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Well done.
Was your back seat covered in Red Bull cans, or?
Yeah, I do have a ritual now. There's always an energy drink on the way to a wedding now. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a V, I think, in the car as well all the time, every time before every shoot.
So I'm just going to move along to something that's actually been in the media quite a bit lately. you might have heard, and I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of it, about a photographer overseas who basically was asked as a guest to take photos, and then basically ended up doing some ridiculous shift. And when they wanted to take a break or get a meal, they were advised that basically because they were now the photographer, they had no meal. And basically they couldn't stop taking photos, and they couldn't have water, and they couldn't, so that photographer turned around and erased all the photos directly in front of the bride, the groom it was, and erased all the photos as to be spiteful towards them. So generally speaking, with breaks, I mean, do you find that people, automatically think, this guy needs a break, and they, you need a meal and stuff like that, especially with a 19-hour shift? Obviously, I'm hoping that they thought about that. Or do you find that a lot of people, you need to sort of remind them that, hey, I'm not a machine, I'm a human being. I need food, I need a break, I need, these things. What happens with you? I mean, what do you find most customers will do?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that story, and in this case was very well warranted. But it's again expectations thing. That topic does come up in the planning of the wedding itself, and it's actually detailed in my contract as well. If I'm present, during the time that the guests are eating, is that it is an expectation that myself and my assistant and videographer, if he's working, to be fed during that time period as well, and hopefully at the same time as the guests as well. So that way, it's ensured that we don't miss anything.
Yeah, and the thing, when I actually say that to people, they're like, oh, but who's going to take photos of us eating? And it's like, well, who wants a photo with a piece of spinach hanging out of your mouth? No one wants photos of themselves eating. And in past, when I've tried to take photos of people eating, they would get aggravated and yell at me, or, give me snarls or dirty looks. And, the reality behind it is when people are eating, you just stop taking photos because you're either going to get bashed or, the photo's just going to be crap. So there's no reason why you can't sit down and have a meal or a break at that stage. But for some people, they don't click that with that sort of thing. Now, one of the things, going back to that particular person who raised all the photos, and sorry, Marcel, I'm going to take it away. I'm going to take the limelight off you for a second there. I'm very big with law and stuff. One of the things that people haven't been discussing is the legalities and the contracts and stuff. Like when you're a photographer and you've developed a contract with a client, if you do not provide the photos as per the contract, you can be sued. All right. So whilst everyone's like, "Oh yeah, good on him," good on her or him or whatever it was, they did the right thing. That client can turn around and actually sue that person. So you need to be mindful as a wedding photographer that there's a lot of contractual obligations there. For example, if you arrive late at the actual wedding, you can be sued for that. Poor quality photos, you can be sued for that. Not enough photos, believe it or not enough photos is one of the reasons you can actually be sued. There's so many different things. So,
is that part of the Australian law though?
Well, yeah, it is. It's contract, because you've got a contract. So there's all these legalities behind which no one really talks about. Providing the final image is late, you can be sued. If you lose the photos, you can be sued. And then there's all the legalities behind the ownership of the actual photos as well. So with photography in general, when you take a photo, it's your photo. But when you're in a contract for a wedding, for example, the photos are not yours. They actually belong to the wedding couple. So they own those photos. So if you were to be in a contract for photos and then you gave them their photos and you tried to use those photos without permission to promote yourself, you could actually be sued. So
that's part of the contract though, isn't it, Marcel? Like you will have all that in the contract, right? So the contract is obviously being provided in a black and white format, and if you feel like using that for self-promotion, then you use it for self-promotion, right?
But you'd need to actually have that in the contract. So if
that's what I'm saying, though. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realise that they need to basically get permission to use those photos. So they could turn around at a later date and go off and promote this is my photography and blah blah, and showing it to other clients, and they can actually be sued for that. So a lot of people don't realise that. Sorry, Marcel. You're probably looking at me going, yeah, this is old news, man.
Because the usage of people's images on social media, that can be quite important to some couples. Like I've had maybe doctors or lawyers or something like that that don't want their faces, put on social media. So they request that, can you remove that point from your contract? And I'm more than happy to honour that.
Yeah. And sorry, one last thing that I actually wouldn't mind putting in there. And sorry, Marty always gives me this look like, oh God, here we go.
Can you see me rolling my eyes or what?
I can. I saw you. This is amazing. This Zoom thing's really working.
People can't see me properly.
But no, this is actually an important thing for photographers to know. So if you take a photo of a wedding couple, those photos belong to the wedding couple, unless you've also stipulated in the contract or you've got an agreement with them to use those photos. Now, that wedding couple can't actually go off and use those photos for any other purpose other than personal use. So if they, for example, have a wedding business and they're going to go off and use the photos that you provided them to promote their wedding business or to promote their wedding dress business or anything at all that is not directly personal use, then you can sue them for breach of contract and for copyright. It gets really complicated, doesn't it? And this is probably one of the few areas in photography where
why Marty doesn't shoot weddings. I was going to cut you off. It's just like, mate, I don't want to do this anymore.
It's effing my head. It's effing my head. But the legalities behind it is amazing. And look, I guess you need to be mindful that there are a lot of people out there in the industry who, they're there to make a quick buck. And, by no way are you, Marcel, one of these people. You are a professional. You're a true professional in every way. But there are other companies out there who basically do your photos. They take your money because they make you pay up front. And there's actually a couple of them here in Melbourne. I won't mention names. But they take your money, they do your shoot, and you never see the photos again. So 3 years on, you're chasing them, you've taken them to court, nothing ever happens. They go to court, they go to VCAT. VCAT says, you need to provide them with the photos. They never do. Or they provide you with the raw photos, or not all of them, or some of them. I've actually heard of cases where they've gone to court, and there's been a court order saying you need to provide the client the photos, and that person provided photos to the client that weren't even from their wedding. So it was a completely different wedding. So there's a lot of people out there in this day and age who do some weird stuff, and that's why there's a lot of legalities behind it to protect the end user, obviously, and also to help us along. So there you go. If there is one thing that you can fall back on, though, is acts of God. So say, for example, you're going to the wedding and there's a flash flood, your car gets thrown off a cliff or something completely out of your control. You can fall back on that. Okay, so I bored you senseless with the contract stuff. So Marty's eyes have rolled into his head several times.
I just had like 5 questions that I just remembered. No, I just totally forgot every single one of them.
I'm sorry, Marty, but you know me, I'm always jumping on the legal side of things. So
yeah, I know.
All right, we're going to go back. We're going to take a step back. Marcel, sorry for taking the train off the tracks there. So tell us, what's a typical wedding look like? You got pre-shoots, getting ready shots, ceremony. What other things do you actually do?
Yeah, so a wedding timeline, they're generally quite similar, especially when it's a venue-based wedding, like at a winery or a purpose-built venue that has ceremony on site and also a reception on the same property. You can almost have the same template that works out, between wedding to wedding. So it often will be one partner getting ready at one location, then the second partner getting ready at another, and hopefully, and sometimes they're on site, if not too far away. And then you would do the ceremony, and then the family photos, the shoot session, and then reception, which will consist of an intro, your first dance or cake cut, and then the speeches. So
it's pretty much the standard thing. What people done, 15, 20, plus years ago. It's virtually the same standard. Do you find that COVID has changed a lot of those things though? Like, do you find that, you mentioned earlier that sometimes you might get, booked in for 2 hours just to sort of, in and out kind of thing. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you find that COVID has changed the whole aspect of wedding photography and videography?
I still find with weddings that can still go ahead somewhat the same. So that really hasn't changed in a sense. But what has changed over the last few years is the advent of same-sex marriages.
Oh, yeah.
So the getting ready portion, they might get ready together. And also I found with a couple of the older couples as well that might be doing their second wedding, where less bells and whistles, but they'll often get ready together as well, which is great because you don't have to travel between two venues for one, so it's more efficient on your part, but also there's an interesting dynamic as well with the couple. So that's probably been the biggest change over the years. And also first looks too.
First looks? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so that's one that actually has popped up recently. The first looks is one that caught me off guard as well. So give us a bit of a rundown on that one.
Yeah, so it's something that sort of came about in America quite a few years ago now, but it's where the couple would meet before the ceremony. So pretty much tradition goes out the window where, the one partner will be at the end of the aisle waiting for the other one to come down, and, they see them for the first time and there'll be a tear rolling down their face sort of thing, or a reaction, which is always exciting. But there's also the first look side of things where they meet up beforehand, and that's adds a different dimension, I think, to the wedding. I think it's just as exciting for each of the couple as well, and what that enables them to do is to shift the photo shoot session to before the ceremony, so that way they can move straight into the reception straight after the ceremony, which is quite important to a lot of people.
Okay, interesting. I guess there's a lot of trends and everything else is changing slowly. So, like when I got married, the videographer, photographer were with us for, 10 hours as well, 8 hours or whatever else. And we had a good time. And, dynamics change, same sex marriages. And like, even if you mention it, like, the father of the groom is dressed as a woman, and all these new things are coming out that you kind of get thrown a little bit, but I guess at the end of the day, people still want to have fun, people still want to enjoy the day, and they want to document that by yourself, being professional, you know what I mean? So making this for 13 years, doing this for 13 years, I think it's wonderful. And definitely, mate, good job, because I have some new images as well. And I encourage everyone that's sort of listening to the podcast, jump on and, have a quick look, and what they will find out, they're amazing images. And I think, the experience shows in those images as well. So it's brilliant, fantastic.
All right, guys, so we're going to cut it short here. The interview with Marcel is extensive. It's a lot of information. It's in depth. It's wonderful. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it, and you can hear the second part of it in our next episode.